On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, HMS Queen Elizabeth replaces HMS Prince of Wales. I'm your host, Sal Mercaglano. Welcome to this episode of What's Going On with Shipping. If you're new to the channel, take a second, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. So we've learned more about why HMS Prince of Wales had to cancel her scheduled deployment and in turn has been replaced by Queen Elizabeth that just set sail from Portsmouth heading across the Atlantic. Let's go ahead and head to this story. Here's a story from USNI News, and in particularly a video that was posted by the Royal Navy. You remember in our first video we did on this, Rear Admiral Steve Morehouse came out and gave the initial assessment. Let's listen to his assessment today about the situation regarding Prince of Wales.
I spoke to you earlier in the week regarding the emerging issue with HMS Prince of Wales. And following an internal Royal Navy update earlier today, I wanted to provide further details on the situation. Our priority this week has been to ensure the ship and her people are safe, whilst working hard to understand the nature and extent of the damage. While we do not routinely comment on the material state of our warships, there has been some speculation, and it is important for me to clear that up. Royal Navy divers have inspected the starboard shaft of the ship and the adjacent areas, and they have confirmed that there is significant damage to the shaft and the propeller and some superficial damage to the rudder, but no damage to the rest of the ship. Our initial assessment has shown that a coupling which joins the final two sections of the shaft has failed. Now, this is an extremely unusual fault, and we continue to pursue all repair options. We're working to stabilize the shaft section and the propeller, after which the ship will return to Portsmouth. The ship will then probably need to enter a dry dock, as this will be the safest and quickest way to effect the repairs. The good news is that our other aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth, will depart Portsmouth next week to undertake elements of Prince of Wales' programme in the United States. She'll then return to Europe to continue our autumn programme of exercises and operations. As for Prince of Wales, we will repair her, get her back on operations, protecting the nation and our allies as soon as possible.
So that's a really remarkable statement by Rear Admiral Morehouse on the extent of damage done to Prince of Wales and basically announcing exactly what has happened to the ship. Now, don't just make you understand this, if you're not familiar with shipping, the ship has twin propellers, a port left side and a starboard right side propeller. And what he's talking about is a coupling that joins the propeller shaft. The propeller shaft is not one long shaft, but made up of sections. And one of these couplings that join the propeller has let go, basically. And the shaft has literally shifted and moved. Let me show this to you in a diagram with a little bit more explanation. So this is an image of HMS Prince of Wales and gives you an internal schematics on it. But what I really want you to notice here is on the left side here is the propeller. Two bronze propellers, each 22 feet in diameter and weighing 33 tons. They push the ship at a top speed of 30 knots. You'll notice right here, the propellers, kind of hard to see here, and I got another image I'll show you, is within a tail shaft here that goes into the inside of the vessel, and just aft of the propeller would be the ship's rudders. This diagram gives you kind of a deck-by-deck view of the vessel. Here, number 84, you see the port propeller shaft. Then this next deck up would stack on top here, and then you have the rudder just aft of it. And if you look here underneath these voids, these areas number 43, into the vessel comes the propeller shaft. You'll notice it right here, numbers 83. You'll see the propeller shaft here, comes into the motor here. The port shaft on the vessel is longer than the starboard shaft. It's the starboard shaft, the one on the right side, the upper top of the screen here. That's the issue. 83 here, you see where the shaft is. It would go underneath here and then back out to the vessel. And again, this shaft is not one long continuous shaft. It's a series of shafts. And what it sounds like has happened is the after part of the shaft has let go. The coupling has let go. And it sounds like the way he describes this is the shaft has moved aft and potentially have struck the rudder. He mentioned superficial damage to the rudder and damage to the propeller. And what could potentially happen is that, and we don't know this because it wasn't mentioned in the video, and we haven't heard an official statement of this, if the starboard shaft was spinning and this happened and that coupling let go, then that coupling would basically lose kind of connection between the two shafts. And what you do is separate out, and then one spinning uncontrollably, and the end of the starboard shaft, which isn't connected to the engine anymore, would basically be being pulled by the water, by the drag on the propeller shafts, and could vibrate and cause damage. It's one of the reasons they probably sent the divers over the side, was to examine this. I'm going to show you a propeller shaft and what it looks like in the inside of the vessel, but this is not HMS Prince of Wales or Queen Elizabeth. This is a commercial vessel. So in this image, we're looking aft. So the top of the screen to the left side is aft. For the bottom to the right side is going forward. Go ahead and put this playing now. And you see the shaft going, and you'll see where these couplings are and these bearings that hold the propeller in place. And to the backside there is where the propeller will go through the ship, actually, to the exterior, to the propeller. And you'll see these couplings here, kind of hard to see in here, but this is where the propellers are joined together. I'm going to go ahead and play that again. And potentially what happened here is that the shaft again separated. And because of the size and the torque on this thing and the weight of it, which is massive, it would have thrust out of control potentially if it was underway, and could have caused damage. And even if the propeller was not underway, even if the propeller was not spinning at the time, once that coupling lets go, the propeller dragging in the water will naturally spin if it's not locked down. And if it's spinning, it'll start to spin. And if that coupling lets loose, it could actually begin to pull it out of the stern tube and bump up against the rudder while it's spinning, because you're not locking it down. And that may be what happened, because the amount of damage doesn't sound as severe in the interior of the vessel, although we're not sure about that. No matter what, this vessel is going to have to head to a dry dock to be inspected. And the only one that's available in Great Britain is the one at Rosyth. And they have a contract 10 years out from the building of the vessel to do maintenance on the ship anyway, since they built it. So that's the natural place we expect her to go. We talked about other dry docks initially. That was closer by because there's no dry dock in Portsmouth that can handle this vessel. So she'll go up there. They're going to have to lock the shaft in, make sure it doesn't drag, cause any problems. This also, by the way, explains why the ship sat in Portsmouth for so many days. They had to lock in that propeller, make sure it wasn't spinning, causing more damage before they can bring her into Portsmouth and take a look at it. It is an unusual problem to have. You don't usually hear these couplings letting go on propeller shafts. Extremely unusual. Very typical on warships to have these, so that if you have damage to a propeller shaft, it's not the entire propeller shaft, it's a section of the shaft, easier to repair. But it does mean that you lose one of the propellers. And the fact that this shaft may have come loose and actually worked its way out could have damaged the rudder. And he talked about superficial damage to it. So that's the most we know about it. We're going to keep tracking this and see if we hear any more information on it. So I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, share it across social media. And if you can, support the page by either hitting that super thanks button below or heading over to Patreon. You'll see the link at the end, and go ahead and become a patron of the channel. I want to make one last other announcement too, because I saw this as I was getting ready to do this video, and I wanted to comment about this, and that is the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I have a lot of people who watch this over in Great Britain and throughout where Queen Elizabeth reigned, and I just want to express on behalf of myself my condolences on the passing of Her Majesty. She had an amazing. I'm a historian. I talk about history all the time, and I even talked about Queen Elizabeth at the beginning of this semester, talking about the reign of monarchs, and she has left an indelible legacy that is amazing to behold. And listen, I don't get my history from the crown. I actually know the history of the monarchy, and it is amazing. I didn't always agree with her when it came to Princess Diana and things like that, but just absolutely have the most utmost respect for what she's done and set out to do, and just my true condolences to everyone over in Great Britain and all the other areas where she reigned as monarch. All right, until our next video, this is Sal signing off.